I stood in my childhood home's dining room on Thanksgiving night, watching my 7-year-old son Brandon's face crumble as Grandma announced there was no pumpkin pie left for him. My sister Courtney's 3 kids were eating second slices. Mom said coldly, "He didn't earn it after the way he acted." My hands shook as I helped Brandon into his coat. We walked out into the cold November night. At 9:30, my phone buzzed. Dad's text read, "Transfer the mortgage tomorrow." My blood ran cold. I drove home in silence, Brandon crying softly in the back seat. The streetlights blurred through my tears as I gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. My son's quiet sobs felt like knives in my chest. This wasn't how Thanksgiving was supposed to end. This wasn't how any holiday was supposed to end. Let me back up and explain how I ended up in this mess. 3 years ago, when I divorced my husband Tyler, I was financially devastated. The legal fees alone had drained my savings. Tyler and I had married young, fresh out of high school, full of dreams that slowly turned into arguments and resentment. He was controlling, dismissive of my career, and made me feel small in 100 little ways every day. Leaving him was the hardest and best decision I ever made, but it left me broke. I'm a dental hygienist. I make a decent living, but it's not enough to buy a house in this market on your own, especially as a single mom. Tyler pays the minimum child support the court ordered, barely enough to cover daycare costs back when Brandon needed it. When I was apartment hunting, feeling hopeless about ever giving Brandon a stable home, my parents offered to help. Dad sat me down in their living room and said they'd co-sign on a mortgage and help with the down payment. It felt like a lifeline. I was so grateful I cried. We found a small 3-bedroom ranch in a good school district. Nothing fancy, but it had a yard where Brandon could play and enough space for us to build a life. My parents contributed 12% for the down payment and signed on as co-borrowers. I promised I'd make every payment on time, and I have. For 3 years, I've never been late, never missed a single payment. But they're still on the title. And tonight, I realized what that really meant. Growing up, I was always the difficult daughter. Courtney, 3 years older, was the golden child. She got straight A's without trying. She was captain of the cheerleading squad. She married Derek right out of college, a guy from a wealthy family who worked in his father's commercial real estate business. They have 3 kids, Wyatt, who's 9, Emma, who's 6, and little Justin, who's 4. Courtney never worked a day after her wedding. She didn't need to. Derek's family money meant she could be a full-time mom, with a housekeeper and a nanny for backup. I chose a different path. I went to community college, got my dental hygiene certification, and worked my way up. I married for love, not money. And when that love died, I had to start over. Mom never let me forget that my choices were harder, as if that made them wrong. The pattern of favoritism wasn't new, but I'd always told myself I was imagining it. At Brandon's 7th birthday party 6 months ago, Mom spent the entire time fussing over Courtney's youngest, Justin, who was having a tantrum about the balloons. When it came time to sing Happy Birthday, Mom was so distracted she actually forgot to come to the table. We started singing without her. Brandon noticed. He asked me later why Grandma didn't sing. At Easter, Brandon was scolded harshly for running through the house while playing with his cousins. But when Wyatt and Emma did the exact same thing 5 minutes later, Mom laughed and called them energetic. The double standard was so obvious even Brandon, at 6 years old then, could see it. I always stayed quiet. I told myself that maintaining family peace was more important than being right. I told myself that Brandon still had grandparents who loved him, even if they didn't show it equally. I told myself I needed my parents' support, especially their financial support with the house. Tonight shattered all those justifications. The incident started before dinner. Brandon had been playing in the basement with his cousins. They were running around, playing some kind of tag game. I was upstairs helping Mom set the table when I heard Brandon crying. I rushed downstairs to find him on the floor next to the coffee table, holding his elbow. Wyatt stood nearby, looking guilty. "What happened?" I asked, kneeling next to Brandon. "Wyatt pushed me," Brandon said through tears. "I hit the table." "I didn't mean to," Wyatt said quickly. "He was in the way." I checked Brandon's elbow. It was already starting to bruise, but nothing seemed broken. I was about to comfort him when Mom appeared at the top of the stairs. "What's all this crying about?" she demanded. "Brandon, you're being too sensitive. Boys play rough. You need to toughen up." "But, Mom, he's hurt," I started. "It's a little bump. He's fine. Brandon, stop that crying right now. You're ruining the game for everyone." Brandon's tears stopped immediately, but not from feeling better. He shut down. I recognized that look. It was the same expression I used to wear as a kid when nothing I did was good enough. He spent the rest of the evening quiet and withdrawn, staying close to me, not playing with his cousins anymore. Dinner was tense. At least, it was tense for me. Everyone else seemed fine. Courtney talked about Emma's piano recital and Wyatt's soccer tournament. Derek discussed some real estate deal. Dad asked about Derek's father's latest development project. I tried to engage Brandon in conversation, but he just picked at his food. Then came dessert. Mom had made 3 pumpkin pies. They were beautiful, perfectly golden with whipped cream on the side. She cut generous slices for everyone. Courtney's kids got huge pieces. When they asked for seconds, Mom happily obliged. Brandon waited patiently. When there was a lull, he quietly asked, "Grandma, may I have a piece of pie, please?" Mom looked at him with an expression I can only describe as cold. "I'm sorry, Brandon. There's none left." I looked at the counter. There was half a pie still sitting there. "Mom," I said carefully, "there's pie right there." "That's for later," she said dismissively. "Later? Everyone's had dessert. Brandon hasn't had any." Mom's face hardened. Brandon didn't earn dessert tonight. The room went quiet. Even Derek stopped talking. "Excuse me?" I felt my face flush. After the way he acted this evening, crying over nothing, being too sensitive, disrupting everyone's good time, I don't think he deserves pie. Maybe this will teach him to be tougher, to grow up a little. I looked at Brandon. His eyes were filling with tears again, but he was fighting them back, biting his lips so hard I was afraid he'd hurt himself. My sweet, sensitive boy who loved dinosaurs and building with Legos and helping me bake cookies. My son who said please and thank you without being reminded and who cried when we watched nature documentaries about endangered animals. Something snapped in me. I stood up. "Brandon, get your coat." "Ashley, don't be dramatic," Mom said. I ignored her. "Brandon, let's go." He slid off his chair immediately, relief visible on his face. I walked to the coat closet, got our jackets, and helped Brandon into his. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. Dad followed us to the door. His face was unreadable. That same expression he'd worn my whole life when Mom was being cruel and he said nothing. He opened his mouth like he might speak, then closed it. He said nothing. I took Brandon's hand and walked out. The November air was cold and sharp. Brandon held my hand tight as we walked to the car. The drive home was quiet, except for Brandon's soft crying. I wanted to say something comforting, something that would make this okay, but I couldn't find the words. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most treat you the worst? When we got home, I made Brandon hot chocolate and put on his favorite movie. He curled up next to me on the couch, and gradually his tears stopped. By bedtime, he seemed okay. Kids are resilient like that. I tucked him in, read him 2 chapters of his dinosaur book, and kissed his forehead. "Mom," he said as I was turning out the light. "Yeah, buddy? Are you mad at Grandma?" I paused. I'd never spoken badly about my parents to Brandon, no matter what. "I'm disappointed in how tonight went. But you didn't do anything wrong. You know that, right?" He nodded, but I wasn't sure he believed it. After he fell asleep, I sat on my bed and finally checked my phone. That's when I saw Dad's text from 9:30. "Transfer the mortgage tomorrow." My stomach dropped. I stared at the message, trying to understand. Transfer the mortgage? What did that mean? I scrolled up and realized there was a second text I'd missed, sent 2 minutes after the first. "Your mother wants her investment back. The house needs to be refinanced in your name only by end of month, or we're calling the loan. This is not negotiable." I read it 3 times. Then 3 more times. The room felt like it was spinning. They were threatening to force me to refinance or lose my house because I walked out of Thanksgiving dinner. Because I stood up for my son. I looked around my bedroom. The pale yellow walls I'd painted myself. The thrift store dresser I'd refinished. The framed photos of Brandon at various ages. This was our home. Our safe place. And my parents were using it as leverage to control me. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, Friday, I dropped Brandon off at school. He seemed better, chattering about the art project they were working on. I smiled and nodded, but inside I was panicking. I'd called in sick to work, something I rarely did. I needed to figure out what to do. At 9 in the morning, I called my bank. The mortgage specialist, a friendly woman named Susan, pulled up my account. I explained the situation as calmly as I could. My parents were co-borrowers and wanted off the loan. Could I refinance in just my name? Susan was quiet for a moment, typing. "Let me run some numbers," she said. "You've been an excellent customer. Your payment history is perfect. But, with interest rates where they are now compared to 3 years ago, and with only your income qualifying," she went through the calculations. "To refinance solely in my name would require proving I could afford the mortgage on my salary alone. Tyler's child support was minimal and couldn't be counted reliably. With current interest rates, my payment would increase by $600 a month. Is that doable for you?" Susan asked gently. I did the math in my head. No, absolutely not. After my regular bills, groceries, Brandon's school expenses, gas, and putting even a little in savings for emergencies, I was already stretched thin. 600 more a month would bury me. I don't think so, I admitted, my voice cracking. I'm sorry, Susan said. If your financial situation changes, or if interest rates drop, we can revisit this. But right now, I don't think we can approve the refinance. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat in my car in the bank parking lot and tried not to cry. At lunch, I called Dad at work. He's a retired electrician, but he still does consulting work a few days a week. He answered on the third ring. Dad, it's me. We need to talk about that text. There's nothing to talk about, Ashley. Your mother has made up her mind. His voice was cold, matter of fact. This was the dad I knew, the one who enforced Mom's rules without question. Dad, I can't refinance. The bank said no. My income alone isn't enough with current rates. Then you'll need to sell. My hands went numb. Sell? Dad, this is my home, Brandon's home. You should have thought about that before you disrespected your mother. You walked out of Thanksgiving dinner, Ashley. You embarrassed her in front of Courtney's family, in front of Derek's family. She denied my son dessert because he cried when he got hurt. She's been treating him terribly for years, and you know it. Brandon needs to learn that the world isn't fair. Your mother is trying to teach him resilience. You're coddling him, just like you were coddled. Look where it got you. Divorced, struggling, dependent on us. The words hit like slaps. I tried to stay calm. Dad, please. There has to be another way. He sighed, and for a second, I thought I heard regret. But then he continued. Courtney and Derek are looking at investment properties. They asked if we'd consider partnering with them. The equity in your house would help fund it. Honestly, Ashley, it makes financial sense. If you can't refinance, we need to sell. We'll give you time to find a rental, but we need access to that equity. Everything clicked into place. This wasn't about respect or discipline or teaching Brandon toughness. This was about money, about Courtney wanting something and Mom and Dad giving it to her, as always. And I was the convenient source of funds. So you're choosing Courtney's investment over my home, over Brandon's stability. Don't be dramatic. We're making a sound financial decision. You've had 3 years of below-market help. It's time to stand on your own. I wanted to scream. I wanted to list every payment I'd made, every time I'd gone without to make sure the mortgage was paid, every sacrifice. But I knew it wouldn't matter. I need to go, I said. Think about what's best for everyone, Ashley, not just yourself. He hung up. I sat in the parking lot for another hour, trying to process. My parents were going to force me to sell my house so they could invest with Courtney. Brandon would have to leave his school, his friends, his room with the dinosaur border I'd put up when we first moved in. We'd be back in an apartment, maybe even farther from his school, depending on what I could afford. That evening, after I picked up Brandon from school and made him dinner, after I helped him with his homework and played Legos with him, after I tucked him into bed, I called my best friend Morgan. Morgan and I met in college. She'd been my roommate, my bridesmaid, and the one person who'd never judged me through the divorce. She lived 20 minutes away with her husband and son, who was Brandon's age. "I need to talk," I said when she answered. "Come over. I'll open wine." I arranged for my neighbor, sweet Mrs. Chen, who loved Brandon, to keep an ear out for him, and I drove to Morgan's house. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. Over 2 glasses of wine, I told her everything. The Thanksgiving disaster, the texts, the phone calls, the impossible refinancing, the threat to sell my house. Morgan was furious. "This is financial abuse, Ashley, and emotional manipulation. They're holding your home hostage to control you. I don't know what to do. I can't afford to refinance. I can't afford to lose the house. Brandon finally has stability." "You fight back." "How?" "They have all the power." Morgan leaned forward. "Do they? You've been making every payment for 3 years. They just co-signed and helped with the down payment, right? The house has appreciated. You've built equity. There have to be legal options." "I hadn't thought of that. You think a lawyer could help?" "I think you need to find out. My cousin Jennifer is a family law attorney. She handles property disputes. Let me call her tomorrow." That weekend, I did my own research. I pulled up property records online and looked at comparable home sales in my neighborhood. My house had increased in value significantly. What we'd bought for $210,000 was now worth close to $430,000. Even after the mortgage balance, there was substantial equity. I also discovered something else while digging through county records. 6 months ago, my parents had taken out a home equity loan on their own house. $200,000. I had no idea what they'd used it for, but it struck me as strange. They'd always been financially conservative, never carrying much debt. Brandon spent Saturday with me doing normal things. We went to the park, got ice cream, watched movies. He asked once if we were going to see Grandma and Grandpa soon. I said maybe, but not for a while. He seemed relieved more than disappointed. Sunday evening, I got an email. The subject line read, "Family Business Proposal." It was from Courtney. I opened it with dread. Inside was a detailed investment plan. My parents would sell my house, take their equity plus profit, and invest with Courtney and Derek in a multi-unit rental property venture. There were spreadsheets showing projected returns, market analyses, even photos of potential properties. At the bottom was a note from Courtney. "Mom and Dad deserve to benefit from their investment. You've had 3 years of below-market help. Time to be an adult about this. This is a good opportunity for them to secure their retirement. I hope you can see past your emotions and do what's right for the family. Happy to discuss over lunch if you can be mature." I read it twice, my hands shaking. The casual cruelty of it, the entitlement, the complete disregard for Brandon and me, and the implication that I was being childish for wanting to keep my home. I forwarded it to Morgan without comment. She called me immediately. "Please tell me you're getting a lawyer." "First thing Monday," I said. I didn't sleep well that night either. But this time, it wasn't just fear. It was anger. A cold, focused anger that made me think clearly for the first time in days. I wasn't going to let them take my home. I wasn't going to let them uproot Brandon. I wasn't going to be the convenient sacrifice for Courtney's latest scheme. I was going to fight back. Monday morning, Morgan's cousin Jennifer called me. She had an opening that afternoon due to a cancellation. Could I come in at 3? I said yes immediately, took a half day off work, and met her at her office downtown. Jennifer Wallace was in her early 40s, sharp-eyed and direct. Her office walls were covered with legal degrees and certifications. She shook my hand firmly and gestured to a chair. "Morgan told me a bit about your situation. Tell me everything from the beginning." I did. I brought copies of everything. The mortgage documents, 3 years of payment statements, the text messages from Dad, the email from Courtney with the investment proposal, screenshots of property records showing my parents' home equity loan. I even brought documentation of the Thanksgiving incident, including a note I'd written immediately after detailing exactly what happened. Jennifer listened without interrupting, taking notes. When I finished, she sat back and reviewed her notes for a full minute. "Okay," she finally said. "First, let me tell you that you have options. Good ones. You've been making every payment for 3 years. Your parents contributed to the down payment and co-signed, but you've been fulfilling the obligation. The house has appreciated significantly. You've built real equity here. But I can't refinance in just my name. That's one option, but it's not the only one. We can pursue a partition action. Essentially, you'd be asking the court to either force your parents to sell their interest to you at a fair price, or order a sale of the property where you'd receive your proportional equity. Would I lose the house? Not necessarily. If your parents are forced to sell their interest, you could potentially find another co-buyer, or the court might order terms that favor you staying in the home given you've been the sole payer and you have a minor child in residence. It depends on how the judge views the situation. Hope flickered in my chest. So I might be able to keep it? It's possible. Especially if we can demonstrate bad faith on your parents' part. Speaking of which, this home equity loan they took out, she tapped that document. Do you know what they used it for? No idea. They never mentioned it. I'd like to dig into that. Something feels off. People don't usually take out large loans like this without reason, especially not people in their 60s who should be consolidating debt, not taking on more. Jennifer spent another 30 minutes explaining the legal process, the potential costs, and the timeline. It wouldn't be fast, and it wouldn't be cheap, but I had options, real options. There's one more thing, she said as I was gathering my papers. If this goes to litigation, your family relationships will likely be permanently damaged. Are you prepared for that? I thought of Brandon's face when Grandma denied him pie. I thought of years of favoritism, of being made to feel less than, of watching my son internalize that same feeling. I thought of them threatening to take our home because I dared to stand up for him. Yes, I said, I'm prepared. Jennifer drafted a cease and desist letter that week, demanding my parents halt any sale proceedings and notifying them of potential legal action. She also requested full financial disclosure regarding the home equity loan, arguing that as co-borrowers on my mortgage, their financial situation was relevant. Meanwhile, life continued. I went to work, took care of Brandon, tried to maintain some normalcy. Morgan and her family had us over for dinner twice. Her son and Brandon played while Morgan and I talked strategy. She was my rock through all of this. Brandon seemed happier without the mandatory family gatherings. He didn't ask about Grandma and Grandpa. His teacher sent home a note saying he'd been more participative in class lately. Without the stress of dreading the next family event, he was flourishing. But I knew the hardest part was coming. The following Sunday, after a week of silence from my parents, I decided to confront them face to face. I needed to try one more time to resolve this without court. Jennifer supported this, saying it showed good faith effort at resolution. I arranged for Brandon to spend the afternoon with Morgan's family. Then I drove to my parents' house, the big colonial where I'd grown up. The house that held so many memories, most of them tinged with the feeling of never being quite enough. I parked in the driveway and sat for a moment, gathering courage. Then I walked to the front door and rang the bell. Dad answered. He looked surprised to see me. Ashley, I need to talk to you. And Mom. He hesitated, then stepped aside. Come in. I walked into the living room and stopped short. Mom was there, as expected. But so were Courtney and Derek. They were all sitting in the living room like they'd been waiting. It was an ambush. Sit down, Ashley, Mom said, gesturing to a chair positioned to face all of them. I remained standing. I came to talk to Mom and Dad. We're all family, Courtney said. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of us. I looked at Dad, hoping he'd intervene. He said nothing. Fine. If they wanted an audience, they'd get one. I'm here to tell you that I'm not selling my house. I've retained an attorney. If you try to force a sale, we'll go to court. Mom's face flushed. You're suing your own parents? I'm protecting my home. My son's home. This is ridiculous, Courtney said. You're being so selfish. Mom and Dad helped you out when you were desperate, and now that they need something from you, you throw a tantrum. Need something? They want to kick me out of my house so you can invest in rental properties. It's a good investment. It would help secure their retirement. My home isn't an investment vehicle for you, Courtney. Mom stood up. That's enough. Ashley, we love you. But you've always been the difficult one. You made poor choices with Tyler, you struggle financially, and now you're raising Brandon to be weak and overly emotional. We're trying to help you, and you're fighting us every step. The words felt like being 14 again, crying in my room because nothing I did was ever good enough. But I wasn't 14 anymore. Weak? Mom, Brandon is 7 years old and you denied him dessert to punish him for crying when he got hurt. That's not teaching him to be strong. That's being cruel. I was teaching him resilience. No, you were playing favorites like you always have. Courtney's kids can do no wrong, but Brandon is held to impossible standards. Courtney jumped in. My kids aren't emotionally fragile. Maybe if you parented better instead of coddling Brandon, he'd be tougher. Honestly, maybe Brandon should spend more time with my boys. Learn to man up a little. Derek nodded along, his expression smug. He'd barely said 2 words, but his agreement with everything Courtney said was clear. Something in me snapped. For the first time in my life, I didn't back down. Let me tell you what I see. I see 3 years of mortgage payments, every single one made on time. I see a son who's kind and empathetic, which apparently is a character flaw in this family. I see parents who use the threat of financial ruin to try to control me. And I see a sister who's always gotten everything she wanted while I got the leftovers. You're being dramatic and ungrateful, Mom said, her voice rising. Ungrateful? I've thanked you 1,000 times for helping with the house, but that help came with strings I didn't know about. You're using it as leverage to manipulate me. Dad finally spoke. We've already talked to a real estate agent. The house could be listed next week. We're giving you the courtesy of finding your own place before we force a sale. That's more than generous. The room tilted. They'd already contacted an agent. This was happening whether I fought or not. They were serious. Then I noticed something. A folder on the coffee table. Derek's hand was resting on it casually, but I could see the tab. Investment proposal. Property portfolio. They'd been planning this. For weeks, maybe months. This wasn't a reaction to Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was just the excuse. I felt strangely calm, detached, like I was watching this happen to someone else. You're not going to force me to sell my house, I said quietly. Mom started to argue, but I cut her off. I've made every single payment for 3 years. I've been a good daughter despite everything. But I'm done. I'm getting a lawyer, and we're going to court if necessary. And Brandon and I won't be attending any family functions until you can treat us with basic respect. I turned to leave. Courtney laughed. Actually laughed. Good luck affording a lawyer on a dental hygienist's salary. I stopped at the door. My hand was on the knob. I could have left. I should have left. But I turned back. Actually, I already contacted one. Friday afternoon. And she's very interested in a few things I found in the county property records. Did you know I could access public records online? I can see that you remortgaged this house 6 months ago. $200,000 home equity loan. I'm wondering where that money went. The room went completely silent. Dad's face went pale. Mom and Courtney exchanged a look. A quick flash of something that looked like panic. That's none of your business, Dad said. But his voice lacked conviction. Maybe not, but my lawyer thinks it might be relevant to the case. Something about fiduciary responsibility between co-borrowers. She's going to look into it. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out, got in my car, and drove away. My hands were shaking so badly I had to pull over 2 blocks away and sit until the adrenaline stopped coursing through me. I'd done it. I'd stood up to them. I'd fought back. And I'd seen something in their faces when I mentioned that loan. Fear. Guilt. Something was going on, something they didn't want me to know about. Jennifer was going to love this. Monday morning, I took another personal day from work. I was burning through my limited sick time, but this was more important. I met Jennifer at her office at 8 in the morning. "Tell me about yesterday," she said. I recounted the entire confrontation. When I got to the part about the home equity loan and their reactions, Jennifer leaned forward. "That's interesting. Very interesting. Give me a few days to dig into this. Public records can tell us a lot." While Jennifer investigated, I tried to maintain normalcy. Work was understanding, my boss aware I was dealing with a family legal situation. My coworkers, the ones I was friendly with, offered support. It helped to know I wasn't alone. "Wednesday afternoon," Jennifer called. "Can you come in tomorrow morning? I found something." I was there at 9 sharp. Jennifer had papers spread across her desk. "Sit down," she said. "This is bigger than we thought." She walked me through what she'd found. 6 months ago, Harold and Patricia took out that $200,000 home equity loan. Jennifer had pulled financial records through discovery requests and found where the money went. It was invested in a business venture, specifically an LLC called Prescott Property Holdings. The principals listed were Courtney and Derek. "Your parents invested in your sister's business," Jennifer explained. I dug deeper. The LLC was formed 8 months ago. According to financial records I subpoenaed, it purchased 2 properties, small rental units. The business failed. Both properties were sold at a loss 4 months ago. I stared at her. "They lost the money?" "Most of it. I estimate they recovered maybe $60,000 of the original $200,000 investment. So they're not trying to help Courtney invest. They're trying to recover losses from an investment that already failed." "Exactly. And here's where it gets more interesting. Your sister and her husband are in significant financial trouble. I pulled credit reports as part of the case discovery. They're highly leveraged. Big mortgage, car loans, credit card debt. I estimate they're about $250,000 in total debt beyond their mortgage." My head was spinning. Perfect Courtney, with her perfect house and perfect life, was drowning in debt. And she'd dragged our parents down with her. "So the equity in my house," I said slowly, "they want it to cover their losses and probably bail Courtney out again. That's my assessment. And here's the legal part that works in your favor. Your parents, as co-borrowers on your mortgage, have a fiduciary responsibility to act in good faith. Forcing you to sell your home to recover losses from a failed investment they made with your sister could be argued as a breach of that duty." "What does that mean for the case?" "It means we have a strong argument for the court to either buy out your parents' interest at the original contribution amount, adjusted for inflation, or award you the house entirely given their bad faith actions. It strengthens your position significantly." For the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt hope. Real hope. "What's next?" "We prepare for depositions. This is going to get uncomfortable. But I think we can win this, Ashley." Over the next 2 weeks, Jennifer built our case. She gathered documentation, prepared legal arguments, and coached me on what to expect. Meanwhile, my parents' attorney sent threatening letters demanding I vacate the property. Jennifer responded calmly, professionally, making our position clear. Morgan threw me a dinner party one Friday evening. She invited some of our other friends from college, women I'd lost touch with over the years. We talked and laughed, and they shared their own stories of standing up to difficult family members. One friend, Lisa, told me about cutting off her toxic mother. Another, Rachel, talked about setting firm boundaries with her in-laws. Hearing their stories, I realized I wasn't alone. So many people dealt with family dysfunction, and the ones who thrived were the ones who prioritized their own well-being and their children's well-being over maintaining false peace. Brandon continued to improve. Without the stress of forced family visits, he was a different kid. He made the basketball team at school. He brought home artwork that his teacher praised. He laughed more. One evening, tucking him into bed, he said, "Mom, I like it just being us." "Yeah?" "Yeah. It's Keter. Happier." I kissed his forehead. "I like it too, buddy." December arrived. I received an email invitation to Christmas at my parents' house. It was formal, stiff, clearly written by Mom. I didn't respond. Then, 2 weeks before Christmas, a certified letter arrived. I signed for it with a sense of dread. Inside was a lawsuit. My parents were suing me for unlawful detainer of property and demanding I vacate within 30 days. The legal language was aggressive, threatening, but attached to the back was a handwritten note on Dad's stationery. This doesn't have to go this way. Call your mother and apologize for Thanksgiving. Drop the lawyer. We can work this out as a family. We're trying to give you an out here. Take it. It was manipulation wrapped in a lawsuit. One last attempt to control me through fear. I photographed the note and texted it to Jennifer. Her response came 2 minutes later. Perfect. This shows bad faith negotiation. Don't worry. We've got this. I wasn't worried anymore. I was angry. But it was a focused, productive anger. The kind that fuels action instead of paralysis. They wanted a fight? They were going to get one. Jennifer filed our counter-response within days. Not only did she demolish their unlawful detainer claim, she filed a countersuit. We were suing for partition of the property, demanding the court either force my parents to sell their interest to me at the original contribution amount adjusted for inflation, or order a sale, where I would receive my full equity share, based on payments made and appreciation. The legal language was dense, but the message was clear. I wasn't backing down. Depositions were scheduled for early January. The holidays passed quietly. Brandon and I spent Christmas morning at home, just us, opening presents in our pajamas. We made pancakes and watched movies. In the afternoon, we went to Morgan's house, where her family welcomed us warmly. It was the best Christmas I'd ever had. January arrived cold and gray. The first deposition was scheduled for January 8th. All parties would be present. Me, my parents, both attorneys. I took the day off work. Jennifer met me at her office an hour before to prepare. Remember, she said, answer questions directly and honestly. Don't elaborate unless asked. Stay calm. Your parents' attorney is going to try to paint you as ungrateful and irresponsible. Don't take the bait. The deposition was held at a neutral attorney's office downtown. We sat around a conference table. My parents were there with their attorney, a stern-looking man named Richard Morrison. A court reporter sat ready to transcribe everything. It was surreal, sitting across from my parents in this formal setting. Mom looked older, tired. Dad's face was expressionless, that familiar shutdown I'd seen my whole life. Morrison started with me. He asked about my employment, my finances, my relationship with Tyler. He tried to establish that I was financially irresponsible, that my divorce was my fault, that I needed my parents' help because of my poor decisions. Jennifer objected frequently. I answered calmly, factually. Yes, I got divorced. Yes, my parents helped with the house. No, I hadn't missed any payments. No, I hadn't asked them for additional money beyond the original agreement. Then Morrison brought up Thanksgiving. Isn't it true that you walked out of a family dinner after your son was appropriately disciplined? My son wasn't disciplined. He was denied dessert as punishment for being hurt earlier in the day. Your mother was teaching him resilience. My mother was showing favoritism. My sister's children received second helpings while my son received nothing. You were being disrespectful to your parents. I was protecting my child. Morrison went in circles for an hour, trying to make me look bad. I stayed calm. Jennifer was right. He was trying to bait me, and I wouldn't bite. Then it was my parents' turn to be deposed. Jennifer started with financial questions. She asked about their income, their expenses, their debts. Morrison objected to several questions, but the court reporter noted everything. Then Jennifer brought up the home equity loan. Mr. Harris, you took out a $200,000 loan against your home 6 months ago. Where did that money go? Dad shifted in his seat. That's personal financial business. You're co-borrowers on your daughter's mortgage. Your financial situation is relevant. Where did the money go? Morrison tried to object. Jennifer calmly explained the legal basis for the question. Dad was forced to answer. We made an investment. What kind of investment? A business venture. Could you be more specific? Long pause. A property investment with our daughter Courtney and her husband Derek. Jennifer let that hang in the air for a moment. And how did that investment perform? It didn't work out as planned. You lost money? We didn't profit as much as anticipated. How much did you lose, Mr. Harris? Another long pause. Dad looked at Morrison, who nodded reluctantly. About $140,000. The number hung in the room. Even the court reporter looked up. Jennifer continued. And is it true that you're now attempting to force the sale of your daughter's home to recover those losses? We're exercising our rights as co-owners. After 3 years of your daughter making every payment on time, you suddenly want to sell, 2 months after a family argument, 1 month after discovering your investment with your other daughter failed. That timing doesn't seem suspicious to you? Morrison objected. Jennifer rephrased. Dad admitted the timing was coincidental. Then Jennifer asked the question that changed everything. Mr. Harris, when did Courtney first approach you about forcing Ashley to sell the house? Dad went pale. I don't understand the question. When did your daughter Courtney first suggest that selling Ashley's house would help recover your investment losses? Morrison objected strenuously. Jennifer argued. The objection was overruled based on relevance. Dad's hands were shaking slightly. August. She mentioned it in August. 2 months before Thanksgiving? Yes. So this plan to force your daughter to sell her home was in place before the Thanksgiving incident? Dad looked down. It was discussed, not decided. Jennifer then moved to Mom's deposition. She covered similar ground. Mom was more emotional, crying several times, insisting they were just trying to do what was best for everyone. But under questioning, she admitted that Courtney had been pressuring them for months to cash out of my house. She also admitted that the pie incident at Thanksgiving was influenced by her anger that I'd been uncooperative about considering selling. So you denied your grandson dessert because you were angry at his mother? Jennifer asked. That's not. I was trying to teach him, Mom said. But even she didn't sound convinced. After depositions, both attorneys met with a mediator to discuss settlement possibilities. I waited in Jennifer's office, drinking bad coffee and trying to process everything. Jennifer returned 2 hours later, looking satisfied. They want to settle. Really? Their attorney advised them that their case is weak. The failed investment, the timing, the admission that Courtney pushed for the sale, your perfect payment history, it all works against them. Plus, Dad's accidental admission that Courtney initiated this before Thanksgiving destroyed their narrative that this was about respect and discipline. What are they offering? $80,000. Their original down payment contribution plus $20,000. They sign over all rights to the house, you refinance however you can, and everyone walks away. I thought about it. That's more than the original contribution. Yes. But we can do better. I'm countering with their original contribution adjusted for inflation, about $15,000 total. The house becomes entirely yours. You refinance if and when you choose, and they relinquish all claims. Will they accept that? I think so. They're scared. If this goes to trial, everything comes out publicly. The failed investment, the manipulation, all of it. Your dad's consulting business reputation would suffer. Your mom would be mortified. They want this to go away. How long until we know? A few days. Those few days felt like weeks. I went to work, took care of Brandon, tried to stay busy. Morgan called every evening to check on me. Finally, on a Friday afternoon, Jennifer called. They accepted. With one modification. They want $50,000. That's more than we offered. Yes, but it's less than they wanted. And they're covering all your legal fees. Ashley, I think you should take it. It gets you the house, gets them out of your life, and you're not drowning in attorney costs. I thought about it. $50,000 was more than I wanted to pay, but it was the house. Brandon's home. Our fresh start. If I accept, how do I pay them? You can roll it into a refinance. Or you can make payments to them directly, set up by the court. Or you could potentially get a small personal loan. We have options. I took a deep breath. Let's accept. I want this over. Done. I'll draw up the settlement agreement. I hung up and sat in my car outside work. I'd done it. The house was going to be mine. Truly mine. I called Brandon's school and asked if I could pick him up a little early. When he got in the car, he looked worried. Am I in trouble? No, buddy. The opposite. I have good news. We're keeping the house. Grandma and Grandpa aren't going to bother us about it anymore. His face lit up. Really? We don't have to move? We don't have to move. He threw his arms around me from the back seat. You're the best mom ever. I hugged him back, tears in my eyes. We're going to be okay, Brandon. Better than okay. But the story wasn't quite over yet. That evening, after I'd put Brandon to bed, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Ashley? It's Derek. I almost hung up, but curiosity stopped me. What do you want? I need to tell you something. I'm calling without Courtney's knowledge. He sounded exhausted. The investment opportunity she told your parents about? The one she said would help them recover their money? It doesn't exist. She made it up. She wanted their money to cover our debts. Your parents don't know. She's been lying to them. I sat down slowly. Why are you telling me this? Because if this goes to trial, it's all coming out. Our financial situation, Courtney's manipulation, everything. And honestly, it's gone too far. What she did to you, pushing your parents to take your house, it's wrong. I'm complicit. I went along with it. But I can't anymore. I'm sorry, Ashley. I'm really sorry. Are you recording this conversation? I asked. No. But you can if you want. You can use it however you need to. I quickly put him on speaker and started a voice memo on another device. Say that again. About Courtney lying to our parents. He repeated everything. The fake investment opportunity. The debts. The manipulation. All of it. When he finished, I said, "Thank you for telling me. I don't know if it changes anything, but thank you. For what it's worth, I think you're a good mom. Brandon's a good kid. He doesn't deserve any of this." Derek hung up. I sat in my living room, holding my phone, processing. Courtney had lied to our parents. She'd manipulated them, taken their money, lost it, then pushed them to take my house to cover her mistakes. I sent the recording to Jennifer with a simple message. You'll want to hear this. She called me back 10 minutes later. This changes everything. Jennifer moved quickly. With Derek's confession and his permission to use it, we had explosive evidence. She contacted Morrison, my parents' attorney, and requested an emergency settlement conference. She presented Derek's testimony in a sealed proffer, explaining that we now had proof of fraud committed against Harold and Patricia. Morrison called for a recess. 2 hours later, he called Jennifer back. My parents wanted a family meeting. All parties present, attorneys included. It was scheduled for the following Monday at a neutral location, a conference room in a mediator's office. I almost brought Brandon but decided against it. This was going to be ugly, and he didn't need to see it. Morgan kept him for the day. I arrived at the mediator's office with Jennifer. My parents were already there, looking exhausted and older than I'd ever seen them. Courtney and Derek arrived last, Courtney's face tight with tension. We sat around a large table. The mediator, a calm woman in her 50s named Dr. Helen Shaw, explained the ground rules. Everyone would have a chance to speak. The goal was resolution, not further conflict. Jennifer started by presenting Derek's testimony. She played the recording. The room was silent except for Derek's voice explaining Courtney's lies, the fake investment opportunity, the manipulation of our parents. When it finished, all eyes turned to Courtney. She tried to deny it at first. Derek's lying. He's trying to make me look bad because our marriage is falling apart. Derek shook his head. I'm not lying. And our marriage is falling apart because of decisions we made together, Courtney. But this? Pushing Ashley out of her house? That was your idea. I went along with it, and I shouldn't have. You're betraying me, Courtney said, her voice rising. I'm telling the truth. There's a difference. Courtney turned to our parents. Mom, Dad, don't listen to him. He's trying to turn you against me. But Mom was crying. Quiet, devastated tears. Dad's face had crumbled. They looked at Courtney like they were seeing her for the first time. Is it true? Dad asked. The new investment opportunity you told us about. It doesn't exist? Courtney's face went through several emotions. Defiance, panic, then resignation. We're in debt. Serious debt. I thought if I could get more money, we could turn things around. I was trying to help us all. By taking your sister's house, Mom said through tears. By lying to us? Ashley doesn't need that house like we need the money. She's single. She could rent somewhere smaller. Brandon would adjust. But Derek and I have 3 kids. We have expenses. Our house, the private schools, everything. We need help. The entitlement in her voice was staggering. Even now, even caught, she believed she deserved my home more than I did. You have expenses you can't afford, I said quietly. That's not my problem, Courtney. That's not Brandon's problem. Always so selfish, Courtney snapped. Always the victim. Enough, Dad said. His voice was sharp, final. I'd never heard him speak to Courtney like that. That's enough, Courtney. Mom turned to me. Her face was ravaged by tears. Ashley, I've been blind. I've been so blind and so cruel. I don't know if you can ever forgive me. I looked at her. Part of me wanted to accept immediately, to make peace, to go back to how things were. But that was the old Ashley, the one who smoothed things over and swallowed her pain. I want to believe you, I said. But you've hurt Brandon and me for years. You chose Courtney over us every single time. I need to see change, not just hear words. I understand, Mom said. I do, and I'm going to work on changing. I'm starting therapy this week. I need to figure out why I did this, why I treated you the way I did. Dad spoke next. We were wrong. About everything. About Brandon. About you. About forcing the house sale. We were desperate to recover our losses, and Courtney manipulated that desperation. But that doesn't excuse it. We should have protected you. We should have been better. It wasn't enough. Not yet. But it was a start. Dr. Shaw guided us through the settlement terms. With the new evidence, my parents' attorney strongly advised immediate settlement on favorable terms to me. Final terms. Harold and Patricia would accept their original down payment contribution, adjusted for inflation, totaling $15,000. They would cover all my legal fees. The house would be transferred entirely into my name. They would sign all necessary documents within 1 week. Additionally, they agreed to family therapy if I was ever willing to participate. No pressure, no timeline. When and if I was ready. Courtney and Derek's portion was simple. They were not involved in the house settlement. Harold told Courtney directly that they would not be providing any additional financial help. Courtney needed to handle her own financial problems. Courtney left the meeting in tears, Derek following silently. My parents stayed. Mom asked if she could hug me. I let her, though I stayed stiff in her arms. I'm going to do better, she whispered. I promise. Actions, Mom. I need to see actions. She nodded and pulled back. The settlement was finalized within 2 weeks. My parents signed over their rights to the house. I took out a small personal loan to pay them the $15,000 with comfortable terms I could easily afford. The refinancing took another month, but my bank, seeing the legal settlement and my pristine payment history, offered excellent terms. My monthly payment actually decreased by $100 due to better interest rates and eliminating my parents' equity claim. When I got the final paperwork showing the house was entirely in my name, I sat in my car and cried. Happy tears. Relieved tears. Exhausted tears. I went home and told Brandon. He didn't fully understand the legal details, but he understood what mattered. So we're really staying? He asked. We're really staying. This is our house now, buddy. Just ours. He hugged me tight. I love our house. Me too. 1 week after everything was finalized, I received a letter in the mail, handwritten, 6 pages long, from Mom. She detailed every instance she could remember of treating me unfairly. She took full accountability. She explained she'd been raised by a critical mother and had perpetuated the cycle without realizing it. She talked about starting therapy, about the painful realizations she was having about her own behavior. She understood if I never wanted to see her again. But she wanted me to know she was working to become better, not for me, but because it was right. At the bottom she wrote, Brandon deserves better. You deserve better. I'm so sorry. I love you, even though I didn't show it the way I should have. I hope someday you can forgive me, but I understand if you can't. I read it 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to respond yet. Maybe someday, maybe not. But I kept it. 3 months passed. Spring arrived with warmth and new life. My life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined that terrible Thanksgiving night. The house was truly mine, paid for by my work, my sacrifices, my determination. I'd painted Brandon's room his favorite color, bright blue, and we'd put up new dinosaur decals together. He'd helped me choose them at the store. His face lit up with excitement. We planted a small garden in the backyard. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs. Brandon watered them religiously every evening, proud of the tiny green shoots pushing through the soil. At work, my boss pulled me aside one afternoon in late April. Ashley, I've been impressed with your work ethic and dedication, especially during this difficult time. We'd like to offer you the senior dental hygienist position. It came with a raise, not huge, but meaningful. Enough to build a better cushion in savings, enough to take Brandon on a real vacation that summer. I accepted, shaking hands with my boss, feeling proud of myself in a way I hadn't in years. Brandon was thriving. His teacher requested a meeting in May, and I went in expecting trouble. Instead, she told me how much he'd improved over the school year. Whatever changed at home, it's made a world of difference, she said. Brandon is more confident, more engaged. He participates enthusiastically now. He's made wonderful friends. He even tried out for the spring soccer team and made it. I hadn't known he tried out. That evening, I asked him about it. I didn't tell you because I thought I might not make it, he admitted. But I did. Coach says I'm good at defense. I'm so proud of you, buddy. Are you coming to my games? Every single one. The soccer games became our Saturday routine. I sat in my folding chair, cheering as Brandon ran up and down the field. Morgan brought her son to watch. Other parents started recognizing us, including us in conversations. We were building community, building a life. One afternoon, over coffee at Morgan's house, while the boys played in the backyard, she said, "You seem different, lighter." "I feel different," I admitted. "Like I've been carrying a weight for years and I finally put it down." "You stopped walking on eggshells." "Yeah. I stopped trying to earn approval from people who were never going to give it, and it turns out I don't need it." Morgan smiled. "I'm proud of you. You fought for yourself and your son. That takes real courage." After much consideration, I agreed to one family therapy session with my parents in June. Just one, to see if healing was possible. I brought Brandon. He was nervous but willing. The therapist, Dr. Reeves, was experienced in family reconciliation. She facilitated carefully, letting everyone speak without interruption. Patricia and Harold apologized directly to Brandon. They got down to his eye level and told him they were sorry for making him feel bad, for not treating him fairly, for the pie incident, and everything else. Brandon, sweet and forgiving as children can be, said, "It's okay, but don't do it again." "We won't," Patricia promised. "We're going to be better grandparents. If you'll give us a chance." Brandon looked at me, uncertain. I nodded. "We can try, but slowly. And if anyone is mean to you, we leave. Okay?" "Okay, Mom." I laid out clear boundaries. Supervised visits only. No criticism of my parenting, no favoritism. Courtney's kids wouldn't be at these visits for now. If boundaries were violated even once, visits would stop immediately. My parents agreed to everything. The first post-therapy visit was awkward, but okay. We met at a neutral location, a park near my house. Harold pushed Brandon on the swings. Patricia brought a dinosaur book, something she'd clearly researched, and read it with Brandon under a tree. It was tentative, small, but it was something. Brandon seemed cautiously happy. On the drive home, he said, "Grandma was nice today." "She was. Do you think she'll stay nice?" "I don't know, buddy. But if she doesn't, we don't have to keep visiting. Our home is safe. That's what matters." He nodded, satisfied. I heard through Dad that Courtney and Derek were in both marriage counseling and financial counseling. They'd had to sell their large house in the expensive neighborhood and move to a modest rental. Courtney got a part-time job at a boutique, her first job in over a decade. It was humbling for her, I'm sure. Part of me felt bad. A smaller part felt vindicated. Mostly, I just felt nothing. Courtney had made her choices. She was dealing with the consequences. That wasn't my responsibility. Courtney sent several texts over those months, apologies mixed with justifications, requests to talk. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Maybe someday, maybe never. And I was okay with that uncertainty. Brandon's 8th birthday arrived in July. I threw him a party at our house, inviting his school friends and their parents. Morgan's family came. My parents were invited and showed up on time with an appropriate gift, Legos from the dinosaur collection Brandon loved. We all sang happy birthday. Patricia and Harold sang louder than anyone, trying to make up for that 6th birthday they'd missed. Brandon beamed, surrounded by friends and family who loved him. After everyone left and Brandon was in bed, exhausted and happy, I sat on my porch with tea. The summer evening was warm, fireflies blinking in the yard. I thought about the past 8 months. The fear when I got Dad's text about transferring the mortgage. The anger at Thanksgiving. The desperation when I thought I'd lose the house. The strength I found to fight back. The victory when the house became truly mine. I'd learned so much. About myself. About family. About what I was willing to accept and what I wasn't. Family is supposed to be a safe place. A refuge. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most treat you the worst. And when that happens, you have a choice. You can keep accepting it, keep trying to earn love that comes with conditions, keep sacrificing yourself and your children on the altar of family peace. Or you can fight back. You can set boundaries. You can say no. You can protect yourself and the people who depend on you, even if it costs you the relationships you thought you needed. I used to think family meant accepting whatever they gave you, good or bad. That loyalty meant never saying no, never pushing back, never causing conflict. I used to believe that keeping the peace was the same thing as being loved. But keeping the peace by staying silent doesn't create peace. It just delays the explosion. It builds resentment. It teaches your children that their needs don't matter, that being treated poorly is acceptable if it comes from family. Brandon needed a mother who would fight for him more than he needed grandparents who merely tolerated him. He needed to see that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. I learned I was stronger than I ever imagined. Stronger than my fear. Stronger than my need for approval. Strong enough to risk everything to protect what mattered most. The relationship with my parents might continue to heal. Therapy was helping them understand their patterns, their favoritism, the damage they'd caused. They were trying. But even if they weren't, even if we never had a good relationship, I'd be okay. Because I didn't need their approval anymore to know my worth. I thought about the future. Maybe I'd date again someday. I'd been so focused on survival, on Brandon, on fighting this battle, that romance seemed impossible. But maybe, when I was ready, when Brandon was ready, we could open that door. Maybe I'd pursue additional certifications at work, advance my career further. The senior position was just the beginning. Maybe my relationship with my parents would deepen, become something real and healthy. Or maybe it would stay surface level, polite but distant. Both outcomes were acceptable. None of that determined my worth or my happiness anymore. I'd found my strength, I'd found my voice, and I'd found peace. Brandon called from his bedroom. "Mom, can you check for monsters?" I smiled, set down my tea, and went to him. This was a nightly ritual, one he was probably getting too old for, but neither of us wanted to give up yet. I checked under his bed thoroughly, making a show of it. I opened his closet and peered inside. "All clear, buddy. No monsters tonight." He giggled. "Thanks, Mom. Anytime." I sat on the edge of his bed. "Did you have a good birthday?" "The best. I love my Legos. And the cake was so good." "I'm glad, Brandon. You deserve good birthdays. You deserve to be celebrated." He looked at me seriously, his blue eyes so much like mine. I love you, Mom. I love you too, buddy. So much. Sweet dreams. I kissed his forehead, smoothed his hair, and turned out the light. Walking back through the house, I looked around. The photos on the walls, all of Brandon at various ages. The furniture I'd collected piece by piece. The kitchen where we cooked together. The living room where we built Lego cities and watched movies. This was home. This was safety. This was ours. I'd fought the monsters, the real ones. The ones that looked like family and spoke like love but acted like control. And I'd won. Not because I was perfect. Not because I never doubted or feared or wanted to give up. But because when it mattered most, I chose my son over my comfort. I chose truth over false peace. I chose myself. That night, before bed, I took out Mom's letter and read it again. Then I sat down and wrote a short response. Mom, thank you for your letter. I'm not ready for a close relationship yet, but I appreciate that you're working on yourself. Actions will matter more than words going forward. I hope you understand. We'll continue with supervised visits and see where it goes. That's all I can offer right now. I mailed it the next day. A week later, she responded with a simple card. I understand. Thank you for giving me a chance. I love you. It was enough. For now. Life continued. Summer turned to fall. Brandon started 3rd grade. I got another small raise at work. My savings account grew. The mortgage payment was never late. We were okay. More than okay. We were happy. And I'd learned the most important lesson of all. Your worth isn't determined by who accepts you. It's determined by who you are when you stand up for yourself, by what you protect, by the boundaries you set and maintain. I used to think I needed my family's love to be complete. Now I know that Brandon and I, together, are our own family. We're whole. We're enough. And that's more than I ever hoped for. I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace with family and protecting yourself or your children? Have you ever had to set boundaries that others called selfish? How did you find the courage to stand up for what was right, even when it was hard? Leave a comment below and share your story. Your experience might help someone else who's struggling with a similar situation. And if this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to hear more stories about real people finding strength in difficult situations. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, protecting yourself and the people you love isn't selfish. It's necessary. You deserve respect, even from family, especially from family. Take care of yourselves, stand up for what matters, and know that you're stronger than you think.